Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I'm Tyler here with my brother Ryan. Today we are breaking down the 2024 season for the Green Bay Packers. We're going to give our worst case scenario floor and then our absolute best case scenario ceiling for the Packers fans here, and we're going to recap all that at the end of the video. But before we get into that, if you have not already, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the Tracy Take, and tackle that bell to get notified when new videos come out. Week 1 of the NFL season is right around the corner, and we're going to be coming out with weekly prediction videos for all the Packers games that you're not going to want to miss. So tackle that bell to get notified when new videos come out. And Ryan, before we get into the season, let's quickly just recap some of the areas that the Packers improved on during this offseason. And this was already an extremely young team to begin with, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They did lose a couple of players as well, such as like John Runyon, Jonathan Owens, Arnold Savage, a couple of guys in the secondary as well. But in general, I don't think too many people that are going to be missed too much, especially with what they were able to improve on with their draft.
Aaron Jones left also.
Aaron Jones did leave. Well, the reason why I was going to say that, I think they improved with Josh Jacobs. A little bit younger, going to be a little bit healthier as well. So improved there. I think in the running back room, brought in Xavier McKinney as well to replace some of the production loss from the safety. So I think at minimum, I can accept an argument where they are the status quo, I would say, from what they lost in the offseason. I think they did a good job in the draft as well. They had a lot of picks. I think they got a lot of good guys as well. They also improved from the super young offense now. And congratulations as well to Jordan Love to having one heck of a season to now getting paid, absolutely paid. And so you're a lucky man. But that being said, though, all credit to him, and especially even Matt LaFleur as well, the second half of that season and how they turned that offense around. I have high expectations for this Packers team, just as Packers fans should. What are some areas that you think the Packers are going to be better in this year than what they were in 2023?
So looking at kind of how they were in 2023, the big area of improvement I would like to see is the run defense. They were 28th in overall rushing yards allowed. I will say that defense did get better as the season went on, but overall total yards, they were 17th. They were a top 10 passing defense at 9 out of 32 teams, but all in all, I think that they could definitely improve in the running game. I don't know if they necessarily did, but I think you look, they got Edgerrin Cooper at 45, get some linebacker help there next to Quay Walker, but didn't really add anybody like in the defensive line. So really, I think they're just going to be looking at the development of some of those guys. They were 16th in sacks, also with 45, so right on average there. But all in all, I think this team, they didn't necessarily improve by addition. I think they're just going to improve by development. And at the end of last year, you are kind of already said it, they were one of the top teams in the league anyways.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at their starting offensive line right now. This is the starting offense. And I'd have to double check to see how old Josh Jacobs is, but it's either him or Elton Jenkins.
26.
So I think they might be the same. I'm trying to remember on exactly how old he is. But they might be the oldest starters on the Packers offense. And so that's, to me, like, all these guys are only going to keep hitting more of their prime. Like, they're still even working their way up there. And so I think this offense is going to be extremely formidable, especially as we saw in the second half of last season. I personally think they were the best team in the playoffs, and they unfortunately shot themselves in the foot against San Francisco. I think they should have beat San Francisco. I think they could go on. They would have gone on and beat Detroit. That would have been a crazy game in Detroit, though, against the Packers for the NFC Championship to go to the Super Bowl. Oh, that would have been wild. Anyways, maybe this year. But that's the thing. To your point right there, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just their development is, I think, what's going to take them over the top. And I think that's when we look at the 2024 schedule. We're going to break this down here. We're going to do it in 6-game chunks as well. In this first chunk, week 1, road game, no matter how you say it, is at Philly, but they're going to be playing it in Brazil. Coming back, then they host Indianapolis. Week 3 at Tennessee. Week 4 hosting Minnesota. Week 5 at the Rams. Week 6 hosting Arizona. To me, I look at that, and I mean, you can maybe make an argument that they're going to lose potentially to either Philadelphia or the Rams, but at the same time, that I can make just the same amount of argument that they will win those games. I think the ceiling 6-0. Yeah. What do you think the floor might be?
I was going to say 4-2 is the floor. I think you could make an argument that they lose to Philly in week 1 and the Rams. They're just better than the other 4 teams.
Yeah.
And I just think you look defensively, the Colts, Tennessee, Minnesota, Arizona, all those teams are rebuilding or inexperienced on the back end, and
Yeah.
if not inexperienced everywhere. And so I think that they will have a pretty good run, I think, to start the season. It does get a little bit harder in the second block of 6 games. So they host Houston, at Jacksonville, first game against Detroit. Then they have a Week 10 bye, then at Chicago and San Francisco. This is a tough stretch, in my opinion. I believe you're playing 3 or 4 true playoff teams.
Yeah.
And so I would say like the floor would be 2-3. And I think the ceiling might be 4-1.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think maybe you can make an argument that they even 1-4 might be the floor if we're talking worst case scenario, because I could see Jacksonville or Chicago potentially beating them. Actually, I really more Chicago. I could see Chicago if they are what we think they can, what they can be on paper. For being completely honest, Packers fans, like this is going to be a really formidable team to play this year. And so, but I can stick with 2-3 as the floor if you think that's fair, because I could see them losing to Houston, Detroit, and San Francisco. Absolutely. But then, best case scenario, I mean, if they run the table, win 5 games, that'd be great. But I think that's going to be tough during that stretch.
Yeah.
So I think 2-3 and 4-1 is a good stretch for that middle section. And then the final game, the final 6 games here, Week 13 hosting Miami on Thanksgiving night. Then Week 14 at Detroit for Thursday Night Football. Wow, 4 primetime games in a row. Actually, just realizing that.
Yeah.
Week 15 at Seattle for Sunday Night Football. Then hosting New Orleans on Week 16 for Monday Night Football. And then at Minnesota, Week 17, then wrapping up the season, hosting Chicago. That's going to be a fun stretch there. I think, to me, I will say win-wise, New Orleans and Minnesota, I think those are, to me, I think are going to be 2 safe wins, especially to New Orleans, hosting them in Lambeau on Monday Night Football in late December. So I think floor, I think I'm going to start at 2-4, but I can be convinced to go to 3-3, especially too if you think. I think 3-3. I think they'll beat Seattle. I think the worst case scenario they lose to Miami, Detroit, and then Chicago.
Yeah, I'll say 3-3 is the floor. I will say, ceiling might be 5-1. The only one that I'm struggling with is the at Detroit one, because I think Miami at home, Tua has not won a game below 40 degrees when the weather has been below 40 degrees. They do have a full week on that Thursday Night Football game. Detroit does as well, but so that's not going to make that nearly as rough of a week.
Yeah.
So I like that for them as well. It is at Detroit, so we'll just have to kind of see. But really, the last 4 games, I think they should be favored in at least. So maybe 5-1. That one at Detroit is the only one that I'm kind of struggling with.
I think 5-1 is fair, and the reason why I think we'll do that is because we're doing this floor and ceiling. So the floor as right now with that stretch is going to be 9-8. It's going to be the floor, and I think that's fair. I think just there's too much talent on this team, and they have a relatively, but no, they have a tough schedule. But they definitely have games where even on their worst days, I think they're going to beat. I think they're going to beat them. Even like both games against Minnesota, for being completely honest. As long as they keep making those strides forward. But best case scenario, though, 15-2, that should win them the division. That should get them home field advantage. Being facetious, obviously that would be an amazing season. And if I go look at our record predictions, as we had them in the middle in our offseason recap, our record prediction, you had them at 11-6, I had them at 12-5. I think that's going to be the right ideal area. Like I can maybe see them losing a game to Chicago, maybe see them losing a random game, or like in that middle stretch when they play Houston, Detroit, San Francisco. Maybe they don't go 4-1, maybe they go 3-2 during that stretch, and they lose to Detroit and San Francisco or something like that. Major playoff implications too as well. So I think that they're going to have a double-digit win season. I think at worst they're going to be a wild card team, and probably the best wild card team if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
And so, but I think actually I have to go back and look at the Lions record. But I'll say I actually have the Packers winning the division this year. I think they're going to keep taking those right steps and taking those right strides as well. So
I had them as the top wild card team. with Detroit being at 12-5. But I mean, at that point, we're splitting hairs over who wins one division matchup.
Yeah.
So
I agree. So it's probably, I mean, there's going to be so many fun teams to watch this year, so many intriguing storylines. I really think the NFL and the GMs and how these teams develop. Because I feel like in the past, there were some divisions where like there were always several divisions that were just horrible divisions, like teams were just poorly run. And I feel like there's so many teams now that have just done a good job of putting a good team on the field. And at least that's what it felt like last year, especially in the AFC and the NFC. We're starting to see more of it now. So Packers are going to be one of those teams that are going to be very fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I'm very much looking forward to the Green Bay Packers in 2024. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of the Green Bay Packers offseason and what do you think their floor and ceiling will be in 2024. And on that, we will see you guys next time.